Rabbi Malik, for having invited me to come to speak to all of you. I must tell you, I thought that I was well connected. And Eli Taub called me about a week and a half ago, and he told me about the New York State Chaplain Task Force. I had no idea that there are so many wonderful young men and women involved in chaplaincy. I'm embarrassed to say that I didn't know about Reverend Miranda, but of course, anytime that I'm asked to speak, I always do my research. I went on the website, and I tell you the truth, I was just blown away by the sensitivity and the caring of every single chaplain. And when I began to speak to Rabbi Malik, and I said, please, give me the names of some of the chaplains. I've got to learn about this organization. And I spoke to my dear friend, Akiva Hamnick. I spoke to Chaim Nass. Oh, that's you. I hope you got a badge. And I spoke to Mrs. Schwartz. And I just can't get over this. And the reason that I can't get over this is that, of course, all the yeshiva boys here know that one of the greatest rabbis that we ever had in America was Rabbi Aaron Kotler. Rabbi Aaron Kotler, the Rosh Yeshiva, of course, the founder of Lakewood. And he writes like this: Ki ha'olam miskayim. How does the world exist? Rak, only al yedei hamargishim achrayas. Those people who feel an achrayas, who feel a responsibility for the tzibur. V'loy al yedei ha'omrim, and not like those people who say shalom alecha nafshi or parsha min tzibur. I'll do my own thing. Let the tzibur do whatever they want. The Klal Yisrael exists only by those people who feel an achrayas. And that's what all of you do. You came to this course, you became chaplains because you feel an achrayas, you feel a responsibility, not only to Klal Yisrael, but to humanity. And that's, as Rav Malik mentioned, that's the greatest Kiddush Hashem. So I want to tell you something that struck me so much. It's incredible. A fascinating medrash. Reverend Miranda, I'm sure you know the story in the Bible where Moses sees the burning bush,
Absolutely.
right? Okay? Now, the Torah tells us, Vayar Hashem saw, God saw, Kisor Lirois, that Moshe Rabbeinu turned to look at that bush that was burning but wasn't getting consumed. So the Medrash, that's one of the commentaries on the Bible, asked the question. Everybody would look. I mean, if you see a Hatzalah ambulance, or if you see a fire engine, or you see a fire on a tree, everybody's going to look. Why does the Torah have to use that word, Vayar Hashem, Hashem saw, Kisar Lirois, that he turned to look? Everybody would look. Every word in the Torah is teaching us something. And the Medrash tells us something fascinating. The Torah is not just telling us that he turned to look. The Torah is defining his personality. Moshe Rabbeinu, Hashem saw that Moshe Rabbeinu, that Moses was a person who turned from his own affairs, from his own involvements, to look and to see the problems of others. Oh, when God saw, when Hashem saw that Moshe Rabbeinu was a Sor Lirois, that he turned to look at the problems of others, he said, this is the man. This is the reason that I'm going to call him to be the leader. And Apatzka Levenstein, the Mashgiach Hapanovich, writes, Mefurish Lona B'Medrash, the Medrash is teaching us, Shezchus Moshe, what was the merit of Moshe Rabbeinu that Hashem chose him as the leader? Not because he was the wisest, not because he was the smartest, because he cared. He was Neiseh Ba'oil Im Chaverei, because he felt the burden and the pain of his friend. And when I come here tonight and 15 graduates are added right now to the Jewish chaplaincy service, you could all know that you are the leaders of Klal Yisrael, that you are the leaders of the Jewish nation, in a sense, because as I saw on the website, I want to, Reverend mentioned, you dare to care. There are many people who don't care, because let the world do whatever they want, but Rav Aaron is telling us, you know how Klal Yisrael exists? By those who feel that responsibility. And that's the beauty. And I must tell you, I was amazed at some of the things, and I just want to share with the new chaplains some of the things that you may be involved in that really touched me. For example, one of the chaplains told me that there was a fellow who called. His family was in Monroe, far away. He was in a New York City hospital, and for whatever reason, he wasn't given a kosher meal that morning. Well, you know, the meals in the hospital are not the greatest as it is, but if you have nothing to eat, that's terrible. So, who's he going to call? So he called one of the chaplains, and there's a fellow who's sitting here right now who brought him a kosher meal out of his own expenses. That's beautiful. That was uncalled for. He didn't have to do that. He could have went into the kitchen and made a whole big hullabaloo and say, how come this guy didn't get the kosher meal? He didn't do that. Because as you said before, that you might get this job done, but you're gonna push away the rest of the time when you really need the kitchen. So what this guy did was, and Akiva, I'm proud of you, that Akiva went and brought the fellow from his own money. He went out to the grocery, and he got him a kosher meal. That's what a chaplain's all about. That's what Baron Cutler is talking about. That's the Solirois, the person who turns to see. There was somebody who also came into the hospital, and he didn't have his tefillin, and his family was away. Now, we as Jewish people, Reverend, I'm sure you know, we wear the phylacteries, the tefillin every morning. A Jewish person wouldn't even think of going a day without wearing tefillin. And this chaplain went and got him a pair of tefillin, and he was able to wear tefillin. That's part of the healing process when somebody's in the hospital. When somebody is in the hospital and he feels that he's not making a connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there's no atheist in a foxhole. When somebody's in the hospital, he wants to make a connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He's going to go without tefillin, and this chaplain went and he got him the tefillin. Another thing I couldn't get over this, what Chaim told me. It's amazing. Chaim told me that there was a fellow who was driving in Manhattan, and there was a drunk in the street, and the drunk fellow walked into the car and fell. Now, the driver, just like I wouldn't think that's it. I didn't hit him. He walked into my car, so the driver drove off. But somebody saw him and reported him, and the cops ran after him. They caught him, and they said that he's hit and run. What hit and run? The driver, the drunk guy was the hit and run. He hit into the car, and he fell. But the point was, now this guy was stuck. And the cop was angry at him because he claimed I was hit and run. So now what do? So he called the chaplain, and the chaplain was able to take care of matters. And as we said before, it could have very well been that the guy would be, overnight he could be in jail. You never know. And then you get it on the record. I know somebody, I'm very close to this fellow. He once got into trouble with the law. Now it's on Google. It's so difficult for him to find a job because he's got something on his record. So nobody wants anything on their record because once it's on Google, it's there forever. And it can hurt a person terribly. So here this chaplain saved this guy from having a serious matter with law enforcement. I just heard this today from Mr. Schwartz, and I heard it from Chaim and others. Many, many times somebody's brought into an emergency room. We've all seen this, especially on a Saturday night or Sunday. Somebody could be in the emergency room for hours, 8 hours. You know what it is? I remember my mother in the Shtankadach, that she was rushed to the emergency room, and until you call somebody who has a connection, that person could sit there. And unfortunately, the hospitals are very busy. So how are you going to get your loved one into a room to be dealt with respect? I don't have to tell you what kind of curtains they have in the emergency room. It's indecent many times. Everybody's walking around. There's so many things going on a Saturday night and a Sunday morning. But when you call the chaplain takes care of it. Mr. Schwartz told me within a half hour the guy was in a room. So that's what all of you have the opportunity to help our brothers and sisters and to help anybody that you're called, whether it's a Hindu, whether it's Catholic person, it makes no difference. They're all B'Tselem Elokim. They all are God's creations. And that's why when the fact that you graduated and you're willing to make this commitment is the greatest credit to all of you. I'll tell you another story that I heard that. It's just amazing. It's happened in a Hasidic school. A little boy, this can happen in any school. The little boy was standing near the door and somebody closed the door nebuch on his hand. It can happen any place. So of course the Rebbe was frightened. He was afraid the kid's finger was crushed. So they called Hatzalah, they took him to the hospital, and they called the parent. Now the parent comes to the hospital, to the emergency room, to the mother. The kid is crying, and however they were going to take care of him. But now, in the emergency room, they found out that she's going through a difficult divorce, because they asked her, where's your husband? Now, for whatever reason, she said, well, we're not together, whatever. But all of a sudden now, as I was reading, the person in the hospital felt that it's a mandated reporter. He has to report it. And now they didn't want to give the child to the mother. Could you imagine? This is her child. He was hurt. He's crying. And they won't give the child to the mother because the mother's going through a divorce. What does she do? She called the chaplain, the task force. Within 25 minutes, the kid was back with his mother. That's tremendous. That's unbelievable. And this is the chesed that all of you are going to be able to do. And you can be so proud of yourselves that you made such a commitment to do something like this. So I want to tell you something. Tonight, I feel that all of us can look at the graduates and we can learn something from them. Because the graduates, all of you, had a goal and you accomplished that goal. And anybody in life that accomplishes a goal, something that they set out to do, they're role models for the rest of the world. Because there are many, many people who get started with something and don't finish it. And I'll tell you something, a very great story. Those of you who went to yeshiva certainly know the name of Rabbi Shlomo Freifeld. Rabbi Shlomo Freifeld was a very, very great Talmud Chacham, and he writes in one of his books that the first time that he went to Eretz Yisrael, he went to see the Chazon Ish. The Chazon Ish was the greatest religious rabbi, the most brilliant person. And he was so intimidated to be in the presence of the Chazon Ish that he couldn't speak. He just couldn't speak, couldn't say a word. He said, but the Chazon Ish told him something. And the Chazon Ish told him that there were three Gedolim that became great all over Klal Yisrael. But they were not geniuses. But they had what Rabbi Freifeld described as the 4 Ds. And these 4 Ds are what the graduates have. And these 4 Ds are something that we have to learn from the graduates. Everybody is busy. I'm sure that many of the graduates are married with children. They have a lot of things on their plate. But if you have these 4 Ds that Rabbi Freifeld is teaching us, you'll see you'll be able to accomplish anything. And what are these 4 Ds? Desire, dedication, drive, and determination. Those 4 Ds, you can accomplish anything. You want to write a book, you want to learn how to drive, you want to do scuba diving, or I don't know, whatever you want to do. You want to finish Shas? Anything that you want to do, if you have these 4 Ds, the desire to do it, the dedication to put in the time, the drive, and nobody's going to set you aside, and the determination, that's what I believe are 50, that's the direction. And when we look at the graduates, it's not easy. I know some of them, Rabbi Becker, his family is a good friend of mine for many, many years. I'm sure he's a busy fellow, but he did that. He had these 4 Ds, and that's why he did it. And that's why we can all be proud, and we can all learn from these people. So I once saw a very beautiful expression. A goal is a dream with a deadline. You know, there's some people that have goals, but it never ends. But if you have that deadline, and you know that Reverend Miranda is going to sit here, he's going to mark your test, by Thursday night, you're going to make sure that it gets done. And that's something that we have to learn from these graduates tonight in every aspect of our lives. Any goal that we have to make a deadline, and you have to be able to accomplish it. I once saw something also so beautiful, and that is that a beautiful expression, let me just find it, about things happen for those who wait, but that's only after the ones who hustle got it first. In other words, if you hustle, you're going to get it. Yeah, if you wait around, it's going to come to you, but you're only going to get the shiorei, You're only going to get what's left over by those who hustled and accomplished it. So I just want to end just with this thing. The Jewish people here know that there was a great woman that was very, very inspirational. Her name was Mrs. Esther Youngrice. Yeah. She went through the Holocaust. She was a fabulous speaker, and she had a very close relationship with her husband, Rabbi Shulam Youngrice, who was a Chassidish Yid. And she told me, I knew him because I did brisson in his shul many, many years ago in North Woodmere, where he was the Rav. And unfortunately, he passed away many, many years ago, long before she did. And she told me she was so broken when he passed away that she couldn't even read his books, his Sfarim, or his notebooks, because he had a very unique handwriting, and every time she saw the handwriting, it hurt her. And one night, her daughter found an index card that Rabbi Youngrice had written. And she called her mother, and she said, Ma, I just want to show you what Tati wrote. Read this. And she told me that when she read this index card, she felt it was as if Rabbi Youngrice had written this card that one day she should find it, and she should be able to go on with life. Listen to what Rabbi Youngrice wrote. A long life is not good enough, but a good life is long enough. A long life is not good enough, but a good life is long enough. And she realized that he had a good life, and that's what he was trying to tell her. You can go on, just be that good person. And that's what I say to all of you, the chaplains. Nobody knows what tomorrow brings. But if you live a good life, that's what Hashem wants from all of us. And then the Rebbetzin wrote a book, Rebbetzin Young writes, and she wrote a book, it's called Life is a Test. And in that book, she writes like this: the goodness cannot be measured by the length of our years, but by how we live those years. The goodness is not about what we amass, but what we give. It's not about having more, but being more. For in the end, our lives are judged not by the businesses and the houses and the portfolios we built, but by the lives we touched and made better. And that's how chaplains live. Thinking about other people, being available, as the Rav mentioned, 24/7. That's what a good life is all about. So I just want to end with this fabulous story that just happened a few weeks ago. By the way, that expression, I just want to read it to you properly. Things may come to those who wait, but only the things left by those who hustle. Now, let me tell you a fabulous story that happened just a few weeks ago. In Brooklyn, there was a family that made a Sudas Haidor. I was trying to figure out, how do you say Sudas Haidor in English? But a party of gratitude. Now, what happened? This father and his wife, they made a party for all their family and all their friends. Everybody came to their home, and he tells this story. He says, we have 4 friends. We all grew up together. We went to school together, we went to yeshiva together, we got married at the same time, basically, and we davened in the same shul. And every year, we go down to Orlando in January, during the winter break, and we rent this big condominium. And it has a big private pool, has a big arcade room, and the 4 families go down every year. He said this past winter, we all went down, and one morning the women decided to go shopping. So the men were there with the kids, and being that they had a private pool, so the men went with the boys and went swimming. And then after they swam, they came inside. Some of the men went upstairs, I guess maybe they were learning in the living room, and the other men were talking. And the kids were all downstairs in the arcade room. Now, the 4-year-old boy, the father is telling the story, the 4-year-old boy that he had, all of a sudden realized that his 1.5-year-old baby brother's missing. Now, all the kids are in the arcades, but a little kid can't understand arcades. And he's looking around, where's my baby brother? And then he sees that the door is open to the backyard where the pool is. And he runs outside, and he sees that his baby brother is flat in the pool, face down. And the kid runs inside, he's screaming. It just happened to be that as he was coming and screaming about his baby brother, one of the 4 guys who was a Hatzalah member and an EMT, he was coming down the stairs to check on his kids. And he yells to him, my baby brother's in the pool. The guy runs out, jumps into the pool, takes the kid, lays him out on the ground, does CPR, saves his life. Mamish brought him back to life. They called an ambulance, Hatzalah, and they saved the kid's life. Beautiful. So he's saying, thank you to Hashem, thank you to God. That look at that timing. Just the second that my 4-year-old son was running in, this guy was coming down the stairs. And he was able to save my son. He finishes the story. And then the Hatzalah guy who saved that kid, his wife gets up in front of everybody and says, now I want to speak. Imagine Eli Tal's daughter wants to get up and speak right now, right? Right? So now this Hatzalah guy's wife says she wants to speak. And she says like this. She says, now I want to speak, and I want to tell you part of the story that nobody knows. She says, this year, me and my husband, the Hatzalah guy, we weren't going to come. We couldn't afford it. We had a very difficult year in business. I don't know, she says, I don't know how that fellow, the father of these boys who made the party, I don't know how he found out about it. But he calls me up and he says, listen, there's no such thing that you're not coming. We've been going all these years together. We're all one big family. We love each other. The kids love each other. I am paying for you, your husband, and your 4 kids. Wow. So he thought, this father, he thought that he was doing us the biggest favor by taking us. It turned out he was doing himself the biggest favor because he brought down the Hatzalah guy who saved his kid's life. Wow. And that's what the Torah tells us by the word v'nosnu. The nosnu is spelled Vav, Nun, Tov, Nun, Vav. It's a palindrome. You can read it frontwards and backwards. You know why? Because when you give, Hashem makes sure you're going to get back. So I just want to assure every chaplain here, if you get a call 2 o'clock in the morning, you get a call during the Paysach Seder, don't be hesitant. Go. You know why? Because the investment is not for the other person. Hashem keeps a scorecard. And He knows that when you give to others, eventually it's going to be there for you as well. So by your becoming a chaplain, you're not only helping the lives of others, you're helping your own life and your family's life. Hashem should bless the Reverend Miranda, Rabbi Malik, all of us here together, and anybody who's going to hear everything that we're doing tonight. Hashem should bless all of us, that we should be able to fulfill our potential and be role models. Just remember, you're a role model. When you come into a house that everybody is so upset and they're so nervous, you are the role model of serenity. You are the role model of what a Jew is all about. You are a role model of what a chaplain is all about. On your shoulders is the whole Jewish nation. Just remember that. And when you act in such a beautiful way, it's the greatest Kiddush Shemayim. Hashem should bless all of us. We should have only mazel and brocha. I thank you for inviting me, and I thank you.